best is a superlative, meaning that it can only be applied to one thing. And yet we try to give our best to everything, becoming overwhelmed and frustrated in the process. And the crazy thing is, it seems that we're passing this on to the next generation, telling our kids to do their best in school and in sports and with their musical instruments and with community service, and the list goes on. But we can only give our best to one thing, and God knew that. From the very beginning, God's plan was for us to give our best only to Him, and He instituted practices to help us do that. In Leviticus chapter 27, verse 30, He establishes the practice of tithing. A tenth of the produce of the land, whether grain or fruit, is the Lord's and is holy. We are to give the first part of the harvest back to God. It helps us to remember that we get our provision from His hands and to trust Him. Similarly, the practice of Sabbath encourages us to trust God. Exodus chapter 20 verses 8 through 11 say, "Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you, nor your son or daughter, nor your male or female servant, nor your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, but He rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy." Rest is more difficult now than ever before. Prior to the invention of electricity, productive work was limited to daytime hours. And in agricultural societies, the winter season offered a time to slow down, to make repairs from the previous harvest season and preparations for the new. But we no longer follow seasonal pauses. Electricity has made daytime hours irrelevant, and technology has allowed the outside world to access us 24 hours a day. In addition, the practice of Sabbath rest has become increasingly diminished. Although God makes no distinction between the 10 Commandments, we seem to feel that breaking the Sabbath isn't as important as committing adultery or committing murder. But Sabbath rest is a trust issue. One day out of every 7, we are to cease our striving and to trust in God, our Creator, to run the world without our help. Let's take a look at one final trust issue. Fair warning, I think this is the most difficult of them all. If health and wholeness is a soul nurtured by an ever-deepening relationship with God, then busyness is a threat that we should never underestimate. In her book, The Best Yes, Lysa TerKeurst argues that we fall into the trap of saying yes to so many good things in our lives that we miss the best thing, our true purpose in the world. And our best yes has 2 dimensions. First, we are simply to be the beloved children of God. And then from that place of belovedness, reach out into the great need of the world. I recently read Called to Die, an account of the life and death of Chet Bitterman. Chet was a linguist with the Wycliffe Bible Institute in Colombia, which was attempting to translate the Bible into the languages of remote tribes. He was kidnapped and killed in 1981 by a terrorist group, but I found his story to be an example of a life lived in best yes. After Chet was kidnapped, a community of faith rose up around the world. For 7 weeks, his family and friends awaited his fate, but Chet was busy. He was befriending his captors and sharing the gospel with them. In the end, they think he was only killed as a face-saving measure. Evidence from the scene found that he had been sedated prior to being shot cleanly through the heart. His executioners had gone to extreme measures to try to be humane. But even more striking was the eulogy given by a fellow translator, who tried to explain how he made sense out of the death of someone so beautiful. In that eulogy, he said, Then I thought of Chet playing soccer. It was Chet's manner to play the right forward wing, you remember. He had a definite style that you could always count on. Whenever he got the ball, he would drive as far and hard into the opposition's territory as possible. Then he'd kick the ball across the center for someone else to score. I think the Lord said to Chet today, in a way none of us can understand, Chet, you carried the ball far, deep into the enemy's territory. You talked to those men, shared the gospel with them. You made them see what they're doing and made them understand what the translators are all about. I let you do it. I knew that's the way you were. His story doesn't fit the narrative of follow God and he will make your life easy and comfortable. But the people closest to him seemed to argue that Chet had lived his best yes. Like tithing and Sabbath, our best yes turns out to be a trust issue. And it answers two very important questions. Do we believe that God's plan for us is good? And do we believe that God can do his work in the world without us having to do everything ourselves? Here's a very simple illustration. When my kids were little, I had a trick for helping them safely navigate the grocery store parking lot. I would ask them to help me carry the grocery bags. They thought they were helping me lift what I couldn't possibly handle on my own. And it kept them safely by my side. I think it's a really good metaphor for our lives with God. Really, the point is proximity to him. As creator and sustainer of the world, God doesn't actually need our help. And regardless of who we are, there is more need in the world than we could ever possibly supply. But the work keeps us in close proximity to him, dependent on his guidance and power. What if, all along, I've been under the impression that God desperately needs my help carrying the heavy burden of the world, when in reality he was offering me one handle of the grocery bag in order to help keep me close to his side? Don't tell them this, but my kids never did carry those grocery bags, and neither do we. If we're giving money to a cause, it's money that was given to us by God himself. If we're serving in a ministry, it's with the skills and talents and gifts that God gave to us. Every second of our life and every breath that we take is from God's hand. Thinking back, there were of course those toddler moments of I do it myself. When one of my children would assert their independence, they would grip the handle more tightly and begin pulling away. What was easy for us to lift together became a great struggle for them on their own. Like them, we like to feel independent and indispensable, so we take on burdens we were never meant to carry. We cling to control of relationships and situations, and then insist on carrying it all ourselves, straining our bodies and our souls. God offers grocery bag burdens to keep us in contact with himself, to keep us safe as we cross the parking lots of life. He says it like this in Matthew chapter 11, verses 28 through 30. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light.